Hi there. Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks is an exciting new digital opportunity to obtain mentoring to help you improve your modeling. You will meet talented modelers and manufacturers from all over the world who share their model building skills and artistic advice. Improve your modeling and increase the confidence in your modeling efforts. Share your building efforts with fellow modelers and have some fun doing it. The shows are live on Zoom and YouTube, so be sure to join in and ask your questions. Now here is New Tracks founder and your host, Jim Kello, MMR.
Well, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really do appreciate it. Hope you'll tell your friends about it. And I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving this year. This is a show where mentors help modelers. That's what it's all about. That's what we try to make everything that we do aimed at. Before we start the show, I'd like to mention that we have a Patreon account. We're trying to raise enough funds to pay for our show and to provide a $1,000 scholarship to a young modeler who's going to continue their education in a STEAM program in college. And I hope that you can contribute some amount to us in order to cover the cost for those. We really would appreciate all the help that you can give us. And with that said, I'd like to turn to Father Ron Walters for our prayer.
Creator of the world, as modelers and makers, we recognize the intricacy and the beauty of our world. We thank you for the vision and the artistry you have given us. Continue to bless us with your creative spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Father Ron. We really do appreciate everything that you do for our show. I now want to talk about modeling lifestyle. Our next show is December the 1st, and it features a really great gentleman, George Serra. And George is heavily involved and one of the people that really has gotten this program started for the Bricktown Model Railroad Association and Museum. If you've never seen it, if you've never heard about it, if you've never met George, don't miss this show, because this is really something that you're going to want to see. And in the future, I think that this is really going to be something that people are going to say, well, I'm glad that we had an opportunity to be there with George. It is December the 1st. You can only view it on our YouTube channel, New Tracks Modeling, and it'll start at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, December the 1st. And we have a short video to show you.
Join the modeling lifestyle at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on December 1st, where we will feature the modeling lifestyle of George Serra. George is a key member of the Bricktown Model Railroad Association, building a huge new club layout.
I love the sound of a whistle.
I just can't recommend highly enough if you try to find time to see this show. If you can't be there on December the 1st, then I hope that you'll be able to watch a video of it because it'll again be live streamed to our YouTube channel. Naturally, you know that the shows are done by volunteers. We need some help. We desperately need some help. We're not asking for major commitments of time and effort. Just a little bit here and a little bit there is what we really need. And if you can help us at all, we sure would appreciate it. My email is newtracksmodeling or Jim Kello at newtracksmodeling.com. And if you'll send me an email, then we'll get together and see what you'd like to do and get you scheduled. Because it's amazing how much there is to do and how many volunteers it takes to put this on once a week, twice a week, some weeks when we do the modeling lifestyle show. So we'd appreciate any help you can give us, as well as funding our Patreon account. With that said, we have some upcoming build-alongs tonight. We have 3 of them started. All of them are vastly different. We have a diorama. We have New Creations Church, and we also have Lighting Without Wires. So they're all different, completely different. And I hope that you'll enjoy them. I know that you'll learn something by watching the people who develop these products build them along on the shows tonight and in the coming weeks. The only one that we have scheduled to start in December is Berkshire Valley Models, and Bill Davis is the builder. Richard Rands is the owner, and it's basically a house that's modeled after one in Colorado. So I think that there's going to be a great build along with Bill Davis. There's a 20% discount off the price of the kit that's available now, and the code word for it is New Tracks numeric 1. New Tracks numeric 1 is the code word to get the discount. So if you're interested, I hope that you'll contact Berkshire Models and make sure that you have the kit by December the 7th. As I said, we have the build-alongs tonight. Our next build-along after tonight is December 21st, right before the Christmas holidays. So if you're building something or thinking about building something or want to build something, I hope that you'll be able to show it to us and let us have the benefit of your expertise on December the 21st. As I say, we have one tonight, and I think that Chris Course has a really full schedule for the one tonight, which I'm happy about. But the one on the December 21st would be the next one that you have an opportunity to participate with. Now, with all of that said, I want to turn to Hank Primas for the quick tips for this evening. Hank, welcome.
I think we're missing Hank. So we'll have to come back to him if he comes on a little later.
Okay, and Hank may be having trouble getting in. I don't know. I know some of us had trouble getting in tonight. We're really not sure why, but we think that we've got the problem solved, but possibly we haven't totally got it solved. So let me go to Gary Shurgold, MMR, for our bits and pieces of the evening. Gary, welcome.
How are you, Jim?
I'm doing pretty good. I think I'm through with COVID. How about yourself?
I haven't had it yet that I know of.
You don't want it. You don't want it.
No. Okay, let's share screen. Screen 2. Share. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Okay, go to slideshow. Come on. There we go. Okay, bits and pieces for tonight is going to be about these little things. Now, those who wear hearing aids know exactly what these are. These are battery packs. They come in 4. And I got looking at them one day and I thought, what can I do with those? So what I did, I saved a few of them up, as you can see here. And for this project, you need 4. So if you're going to do this, you'll need 4 of these. And what I did was I took these apart, cleaned up the backs, and this is what I ended up with. I take these little things right here, they stick up a little bit. So when you go to the next step here, you got to glue them together. These actually go together with crazy glue, line them up, and you've got sort of a little cylindrical tube. Then what I did was I drilled holes only on one side only of them. And then I took some tubing, and the big tubings were in here, the little tubings were in here. And I put together this little device here. I put some plates on each end with some turning devices, some foot pieces on the bottom. I then, as you can see here, these are little plates I put in the end, little wheels here for turning off and on, and then I prime them. And you can see the approximate distance. Now, what this is going to end up is, it's going to end up as a load. Now, if you follow this series, these are little computer parts that I've taken and I put them on. These are little control devices to help control this steam or oil transfer thing or whatever you want it to be. And then I mounted it on a flat car and I ended up with a nice little load. Another thing that came along was, you can see here, a little control box and these holding it on. Makes a nice little interesting flat car load. Now this little device here, our shower head, this controls the volume of hot water and cold water that comes in, so it so when someone flushes the toilet, you don't get scalded. And I had to replace mine. So what I did was the plumber took that out and I looked at it and I thought, hey, I can use that for parts. So of course I took it apart and I used the two pieces that came along, put a tube between them. I put some little tube caps on the end, and then you can see here, filled that in, and then I primed it, and I ended up with another flat car load. Very interesting. And that is another shot of it there, mounted it on a sort of shipping crib, and then mounted it on the flat car, and it's ready to go to some industry. And that, Jim, is bits and pieces for tonight.
Gary, that's two of the most creative flat car loads I've ever seen. And best of all, they were darn near free.
Yes, they were. All they are is things you're going to throw in the garbage.
Well, I'll tell you, that's awfully creative, I think. I'm really impressed with that. That's one of the neatest flat car loads I've seen in a long time.
And it's also very interesting when you look at it. It's an unusual load.
That's what makes it.
Yeah, very easy to put together.
That's what makes it so creative, Gary. Thank you so very much for it.
You're very welcome.
And again, anybody that has ideas for Gary or for Hank, please let them know, because, you know, they can't come up with these great ideas all by themselves. And I'm sure a lot of you out there have great ideas. And so please share them with us. We'd love to hear them, because these kind of things, you know, where have you seen that on a model railroad before? I've never seen anything like that. It's so unusual and it's so creative, and it didn't cost hardly anything, if anything. So, Gary, thank you. Now we want to turn to our first build along of this evening. We have three. This one is Hangman Creek's Dioramas. Owner is Jeff Dozier, and Jeff is going to build it for us tonight. So Jess, thank you so much for being here. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you. You guys hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen, and really, I'm actually out of town for the holidays, but it actually works out well because you've got to review instructions and kind of go through that initial process when you're building a kit anyway. So I'll kind of go over those initial steps today. And so let me share my screen and get my instruction manual up real quick, hopefully. All right, let's see if this works. All right, can you see instructions?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, then things are working out well here.
Yes, sir.
All right, now I'm going to put myself on a timer because Jim said we are on a very tight timeline, and you know, once you start talking about trains, I can go over anytime. So let me make All right. So one thing I try to do with my instructions, I think I talked about this in the intro, is instructions for me are really critical. I struggle with just in writing instructions, and I even struggle with plans. I'm just not a terribly two-dimensional person. I'm very visual, so I like pictures. So when I developed the kit line, one thing I really wanted to do was to have really, really good instructions, because you know that's the only way I can model. So again, you know, pretty straightforward. Table of contents, and anybody who builds kits, you should always read the instructions over and over and really get familiar, because you know it avoids mistakes, and you know we all make them. All right, so preface, we'll skip all this stuff. I get a little review of the company, and you know, just you know, my modeling philosophy is just to really try to make, you know, do everything, even the small stuff, do it to the highest detail possible, because in the end, that's what's going to add up to make a really, really cool model, right? What's in the box? It's really just an inventory. I use these to make sure that I don't mess up when I ship stuff, right? You know, so what's included in the kit: resin castings, hydrocal castings, and I include the scenery. Now, the reason I did this is I wanted to be a little bit different, but what's really critical for me as well is I like things to get done. And if I don't have all the stuff I need at that time, I have a tendency not to finish things. So I thought if I'm going to do a kit, I'm going to make sure I have everything you need to finish it. Okay. So in this kit, actually, I even included the base. My future offers, I haven't done that because they've gotten bigger and more complex, but this one even has the base. So again, nothing real complicated here, but you know, you avoid having to buy, you know, bulk of everything if you go this route too. All right. So again, quick inventory. So these, I've got some castings from Keith Wiseman. He owns the McKinsey line. He purchased that, and he's got this neat little Buddha motor kit. So you know, it's got a few different things in it, but let's get down to the basic stuff. First thing you got to do is basically, this is Home Depot special. It's just a 12-inch by 12-inch, quarter-inch piece of plywood that I supply, and just some slats. And you know, basically just glue a box together. Use a couple clamps, some 3-2-1 blocks. Anybody who's ever used 3-2-1 blocks, they are your friend. They are the handiest thing ever. They keep things square and straight. And then I just sprayed it with some, sealed it, because it's going to have, eventually, it's going to be the base. So I want to get paint on it now, even if I have to go back and touch it up later. So nothing strange here. I just, you know, you basically build in a box. Now, this is where you got to invest a little bit of time, right? So resin is unique in that it really, you can do a lot with it. I like to build in my resin patterns. I do all the pre-distressing already. So if it is like the, you know, the boat is metal, whereas the boat deck and the outhouse are wood, the dock is wood, but I actually grain all my patterns in, so you don't have to go, it's already got the knots in there, it's already got the nail holes and stuff like that. And resin replicates things amazingly in fine detail when you use an RTV mold. You see in this too, there's trestle bents, there's stringers, there's some caps, there's tires. I mean, so I prime all the resin castings. I just use very inexpensive automotive primer. You get it at, you know, Home Depot. Again, light feather coats. And what's really critical with resin castings is to always, most manufacturers, I'm one of them, we use mold release. That protects the life of our molds. It also helps with detail. But you always want to wash your castings, warm water. Comet, it's a Tom York trick. Use a little bit of Comet on them with a sponge and just brush them down. It gives, gets that mold release off, but it also gives the resin some tooth, and the paint will stick to it better. If you have any mold release on something that's left and you try to paint it, it may stick, but eventually, if you brush it wrong, it's going to come off. So resin castings, clean up the flash lightly. I try not to give too much flash, and just warm soapy bath. Again, a little bit of Comet works really, really well. And this is a critical stage, because you know, you do this right, and then a lot of other things are going to go well down the road. White metal and brass pieces, I pre-blacken everything. And a trick that I found out about was if you actually take white metal and you dunk it and give it a nice rinse in 99% isopropyl alcohol, which you can get at a drugstore for like $1, well, a little more than that now. Then when you blacken the white metal, it won't get those funky little white spots that sometimes you get when you blacken white metal. Sometimes there's these little areas that won't quite, the acid won't quite attack them. Now I use, blacken it is really what everybody uses, but it's actually expensive per ounce. Whereas, you know, I go through a lot of stuff. I buy Rio Grande models straight through the internet, and literally, like, this jar has lasted me, this big old tub has lasted me like 12 years. Like it, and it's really strong, so it instantly works. Where blacken it is a little bit diluted. Now, what's great about that is that, you know, natural metal, when you blacken it, gives it, you know, gives it a great surface for paint to adhere to, but it also, with a little bit of buffing, it looks pretty natural and really good on its own. All right, strip wood. There's so many different ways to do strip wood. It's insane, right? So I try to mix it up a little bit. I use everything from cheap Minwax primers to wash down gray paints. Again, I go back and I pre-grain my strip wood just with a welder. This is a welder's or a file cleaning brush. It's got a really stiff, short bristle. It works fantastic, and you can get a lot of grain in. You can use an X-Acto knife. And then I just bought some real cheap leather punches. Leather punches are fantastic in that you can actually just drive them in and make a little knot detail if you want, and then that'll show up when you color it. So again, I pre-prep everything because I like when I put stuff together. It also, if you make an error, like once you glue something, it doesn't stain well, it doesn't paint well, right? If you have a little bit of overflow with paint or anything like that. So I like to get a good base, and I weather things pretty old and aged. So I try to get a nice, that aged gray look. You can use something even as simple as silverwood, or even a little alcohol India ink wash. There's so many methods, but I have a tendency to try to do a little variation. So, right, I'll use a little Minwax stain, I'll use a little gray paint diluted, but I'll try to make sure I have a lot of variation in any boards I do or anything else, okay? And distress things pretty well. So it shows that character when you're all done. So another stripwood method is to basically have washes, right? Burnt umber, raw sienna, and to lightly wash the wood. It yields very realistic results because it'll give that variation. But again, you're not painting, you're doing light washes. You're just trying to leave a little residue behind. Layers, 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 right? That, and then once that dries and it's still even a little bit tacky, if you hit it with a little alcohol India ink mixture, or even sprinkle a little bit of chalk on it and brush that in, you'll get really, really good results without having to overthink it. And actually, the more random you are and the quicker you are, the less you think, the better it generally comes out, right? I'm impatient, so I like things that actually go pretty fast. Hydrocal. I love hydrocal, right? Nothing replicates stone or concrete better than hydrocal. In this case, hydrocal castings come with the kit. I lightly wash them. This is, again, really a Tom York method that I picked up years ago. I can't say this is original because it's not, but it really works well. Just diluted craft paint and layers of wash, and to carve in a little bit of cracks. Those are already built into the casting. A little burnt umber on the bottom, to simulate kind of how water rises and falls. You can even paint a little moss if you want. But again, real easy to have a lot of character, and everything gets finished with alcohol and India ink. So again, here's that layers. This is some AK Interactive moss and moss deposit. I love this stuff. I'm addicted to moss because this stuff's so cool, right? It just gives variations, and it's for something really simple. It shows like, hey, wow, you did a little extra, right? And wherever there is, shade and water, and, I'm kind of modeling the Northwest, there's going to be moss. So try to get that in areas where it would settle. But again, this literally was done in under 20 minutes. I mean, I do wet on wet, because I'm impatient and just really like to knock it out quick. So then this also comes with, this is the other bridge abutment. And again, just in this case, there's a couple different ways to do it. I used a Minwax wash on this, but I also use, again, just raw umber, raw sienna, typical acrylics, just like you would if you're painting scenery. Try to get that aged wood look. And then what's good about washes and even a little bit of chalk at the end is that they won't leave a shine, right? Because that's what you want. You don't want shine when you're doing any kind of scenery work. And, again, the trestle bents. So I go back on these resin trestle bents, and I'm just trying to give them that base wooden wash. This is all part of that prep stage. So really, you're going to go from, okay, I got a base prep. I've got all my components, a light wash. I got my strip wood done. I got my, my white metal colored. And then really the fun part is once that's all done, then it's just really about going back and starting to put some stuff together, and then adding, that next level of layers of detail to really make things come alive. So this is the really, early step, right? On the next show, I've only got a couple minutes left, but the next show I'll go over how the logboat is done, because it's really simple, but it really comes out pretty cool in the end. It looks basically as real as you can make it look, but without really having to have any artistic skill at all, right? Which I like, because, I don't want to pretend I'm Picasso. I'm not. I like to do things quick, and the logboat's pretty fun. So again, just really going to work through the next steps. We're going to be working through some base assembly, but really the first steps are all about prep the castings. And just get them aged, get them cleaned up, get them primed. And I always let things prime and cure at least a day. I'm impatient, but I'm not that impatient. You really want to let primer cure, because when primer cures, it gets a nice tooth to it that the other next layers of weathering and chalk and all that have something to adhere to. If you don't let it cure, then once things go sideways, and if it doesn't adhere well to the resin especially, it's really tough to fix, right? Then it doesn't generally come out all that great. So really pretty straightforward. When I'm on the bench, the next show, I'll have the materials prepped. We'll start to go into some base assembly, much more easier to see that part. And, we'll just go from there. But again, really the first step, go through the instructions pretty heavily. And I mean, go front to back, right? If you go through the instructions, I'm visual. It is step by step, piece by piece. So I think that's a good enough start. And I think I used about 13 minutes, Jim. So I better shut up.
Well, before you do, Jess, I think it's going to be a gorgeous diorama. And, providing all of the materials to build it, I think is a wonderful idea, because it does save you from having to buy bulk, certain things that you don't need that much of for this particular diorama. So I think that was a great decision. Does anybody have any questions for Jess so far? Jess, thank you so very much. We look forward to seeing you. You have a safe trip home.
All right.
And happy Thanksgiving.
Yep, you too.
Thank you so much. Well, now for our next build along. And as I say, we've got 3 and they're all totally different tonight. The next one is Lighting Without Wires. Darwin's Lighting Without Wires with Michael Groves. Michael, welcome. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much, Jim. Happy Thanksgiving to you too. So we'll
Great.
get on. So,
Michael, before you start, let me make sure that we're communicating. We got 15 minutes for these segments tonight because we've got such a busy show. So, if you can keep it roughly 15 minutes, that would be fantastic.
Excellent. I've just taken my watch off and we're going to finish at 7:45 on the dot. How's that, Jim?
That sounds good. Thanks, Michael.
Great. So I wanted to talk to a bit about how do you really light buildings? And one of the things I'm going to start with is I've got this really nice looking German railroad station, right? So that's what we're going to work on for the next 3 weeks. But I want to show you a bit of a challenge first as to what happens when you light buildings. So, and I've seen this happen numerous times. So I'm going to take up one of these Plastruct buildings, and I'm going to take one of my lamp lighter, turn it on, and I'm going to stick some fiber up into here. I'm going to get my wife to lower the light in here, if you would please. Just dim the light, please, for me. I don't know if can you see what's going on that roof there?
Yes.
Well, it's a bit of a pain. And so I get customers who send me pictures and there's a glow on their roof. And I go, no, that's not good. So we're going to start right at the beginning as to the first thing I need to do on that roof line. So now I've got this good German building. And of course, as I look at their roof line, again, I'll just dim the lights. Thanks, Shirley. You can't see any light there. You can right along the top, right?
Yep.
Right along the top. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take some aluminum foil. So I just grab some out of my wife's cupboard. Very simple. Take that. And I'm just going to cut down some, what I think will be about the right width of it. And let's see, I've got a building here. Yep. Okay, good. So I'm going to do this sort of really live with you guys and see how this goes. So I've got a shiny side and obviously I've got the dull side. Well, I'm going to put the dull side against the roof. So I'm going to see if I've got about the right length. Yes, I have. So what I can do is in fact fold that in half. So I'm going to take that piece. And actually, I'm going to move this down a bit so you don't see as much of me, but you see more of my hands. That's more interesting. Okay. So naturally, we're going to take that roughly in half, not quite. And we'll see if we stick it up into the roof line. Excellent. Okay, well, it probably needs a little bit of sticking power. So what I often use just something like this. Tacky glue, very, very simple. So all I'm going to do is just put a couple of tacks down on the roof line. All right. Always good to get the air out of it. Okay. All right. And of course, because foil is very, very light, I really don't need that much of it on there, of the glue. Okay, good. So I just sort of tacked some on. You're going to see, actually, I've got a bit of a protrusion here, so that's going to create a bit of a problem. But the great thing about foil is it's so light and bendable, that probably won't make a bit of much difference. So, good. So now I've got my roof stuck on there. Good. So very simple. All right. So there's two reasons you really want to do something like this. One is, obviously, you don't want light coming through the roof. Two, it makes sure all the light comes back into the building. Well, okay, good. So, because really, we don't want, people have asked me, well, why didn't I paint it black? Well, that's a great idea. The problem is when it's painted black, it's going to absorb all the light. And it's kind of a shame to throw light away when, in fact, yeah, you'd like the light to be in there. So that's number one. Number two is, anybody got any questions? I'm going to keep moving through here. So I've made a decision on this building that actually I want to see, I don't want to see inside those windows, but I do want to see inside my little bay window. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to frost these windows up and leave my bay window completely open, and you'll see why in a moment. So what do I use for that? Well, I just take some paper, and it's really just parchment paper, or this actually is paper that you can print on your printer, and I've just marked a couple of lines on it, and that'll allow me to snip, 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 and get the right lengths. And again, I'm just going to apply some glue. So I think I'll take the longest one that I've got, and I'm just going to literally put that onto the building there. It's a little bit long. So nice thing about this stuff, you can cut it so easily. Done. Right. Let's see if it's the right size now. Yep. Perfect. All right. So I'm just going to put some dobs on there. So again, we're doing this in absolute real time. So,
Michael, why did you use the paper there instead of the aluminum foil?
oh, okay. The reason for using the paper is because I really would like some light to come through the building there. So let me put the paper there. Yep. And in fact, let's just do this. So now I'm just going to take some light. I'm going to shine it up into the building. Whoops. Can you turn the light down a bit, Shani? So I got a light shining right on this. So we turn that down. See the effect? Whereas if I have it right here, we're going to see the fiber and we're going to see everything. We really don't want to see that. Whereas here, we've got now just a very nice diffuse light. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
So that's what we're going to do. And I'm just going to do that.
And the aluminum foil would block it totally.
Absolutely. Aluminum foil would block it completely, which is fine if you really don't want to see through the windows at all. But then the window's going to look a bit strange. So I'm just going to pop some glue on all of these. So you can see how quick it is just to do this sort of stuff. It's very quick. And of course, it really doesn't have to adhere in a sort of a very precise way.
Michael, does bond paper work for the diffusing the light the same as the kind of paper you're using, or is it that special printer paper that's necessary?
No, you can use parchment paper. You can use tracing paper as well. But bond paper is not going to be transparent enough.
Okay.
So I wouldn't use bond paper on it. So we're just about there. So you can see how quick this is. Again, I've just I've not cut it short enough, but that's the nice thing about this stuff. Very easy to work with. Snip it, little snips, done. Okay, and I got one more piece. I'll just snip that off. Okay. All right. So that's our most fundamental thing to do. So let's now put this light up into here. So now we've got lights there, we've got that. Yep. My wife's helping me. I've got that. Let's look at the back of the building. Yep. Okay. Good. And so on. So now I've started to get my building ready. How are we doing on time? Oh, we've got about 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next step that I'm going to take is I want to start thinking about what am I going to do with this bay window. So what I did was, you're very familiar, obviously, with foam board. The foam board's so easy to work with. So what I do is I've just cut up a couple of pieces. I cut one up for the roof line. I cut another one for the roof line, but I put a little ledge on the back of it. You'll see why. So I'm going to take my building, and I always get myself mixed up here as to which way I want to put this in. Oops, I put it in the wrong way already. So, yep, there's only 2 ways to put it in, and I started the wrong way. Excellent, okay. So there inside is my little room. And all I need to do is to complete it. I will glue this on in a moment, but I need to just put that part in, and I'm going to have my room. Obviously, it's a bit wonky at the moment, but I will glue that in place. So that's going to be kind of interesting. But let's talk just a little bit more, because we have a few minutes left. I'm going to actually want to put something on this surface here. So I've actually got, and it's easy to get these, pictures of insides of buildings. So I'm going to scale them down to the HO size, and I'm going to glue them on the inside of this little frame inside, oops, yeah, the frame here, so that it looks like the inside of a station. I might put a chair or two in the inside as well, because that way I'm going to actually have something that we can look at on the inside. Key part will be, and we'll talk about this much more next week, is how are we actually going to light that? And in fact, how are we going to light here and how are we going to light there? And to introduce you to that topic, I'm going to grab a piece of information that we use at our shows all the time. And of course you can, oh yeah, there we go. I think you can see the fiber.
Yeah.
So if I was working on a big O-gauge building, I might use 2mm fiber. It's pretty darn ropey. If on the other hand, I'm working with an HO building and I want to light all of it, I could use a 1.5mm fiber. And we'll actually experiment with that next week, doing that. And we'll probably see that what we want to use is a 1mm fiber, because these rooms now have become quite small in this HO building. So we'll look at selecting the right sort of fiber for getting the lighting right. But the other thing we're going to need to do is we're going to think about how do we get the light and get it so that it really shines onto that surface and not just flood the room with light, because flooding the room with light would detract from what we want to see. Now, I'm just going to give you an example of what I mean by taking a church building. Now, this church building has paper on it. So this is this problem where you've actually got something that's pretty opaque, like a sheet of paper. And if you try lighting this building with typical LEDs, you won't get very far with getting light through the windows. If, on the other hand, I take something like a fiber and I stick it up into this building. Now, you can see, fortunately, I've not put any foil on the side of on the walls. So we're getting a lot of glow through the walls, which I don't want. But the fiber does an excellent job of lighting up, because it's much more directional. And that's what we're going to use on the inside of that other building, so that you actually then see beautifully into it, and we're going to reflect off the images that are inside it, and you'll really get a whole lot of detail out of it. So there we are. We're at 12 minutes, and I think I'm ready to answer any questions.
Oh, I've got one for you.
Yeah.
Going back to the paper that you use to diffuse the light.
Yes.
Can I use wax paper, just normal wax paper that my wife uses in the kitchen?
Yep, you can use wax paper. All I do is just sort of hold it up to a window and see, yeah, am I got enough light? What do you think, Shirley, my wife?
If she has some parchment paper.
Parchment paper is even better.
I got you. Parchment paper. Okay, I see what you're saying.
The wax paper.
It didn't register with me. And you can tell from the questions I've got, I know nothing about lighting a building.
Nor did I a couple of years ago.
Maybe not cooking either.
The other question I've got is, because putting the light in there, you are going to light the total building, aren't you? I mean, is just one fiber going to light the total building somehow, or just individual rooms?
All right, that's a question that we will answer next week, but I'll answer it very quickly now. That's fine, Jim. Is we've actually partitioned it now into 3 complete compartments, and the light is not going to leak through very much from one to the other. So we are going to use multiple fibers, but not nearly the same size as we would if it was just a single building with no partitions in it. But adding partitions really gives some interest to the building.
Gotcha. Anybody else have any questions?
Jim, 2 other thoughts about how you can diffuse light through the windows. One is with very fine sandpaper, you can sand the glazing. That works sometimes when you're doing like the windows into a bathroom or something like that. And the other one is to spray the glazing with dull coat.
Huh.
That's a great idea. I like those. Here, though, many of these buildings don't have any glass or anything in them, so you're left with just space. But you're right, glass, yeah. So
are you putting glass in your bay window?
No, not putting any. I won't put any glass in at all. I don't need to, because that'll just act as a reflector when I've got other lights around, and I don't want any reflection from. I'd like to be able to just see in as though it's a non-reflective window.
Gotcha. Okay. Anybody else got questions?
Or good comment.
Thank you so much. You covered it great tonight. I really do appreciate it.
Good. Next week, we'll actually get on with the job. Thanks so much, Jess. Cheers.
Thank you. Well, now let's turn to another one, and for a totally different kind of bill. I hope everybody learned something there. I know I certainly did, because I know absolutely nothing about lighting buildings, as you can tell. But the next one that we have coming up is by Alan Rogers, who owns Fine Creations, and he's got a beautiful church that he's going to be building for us. So, Alan, welcome.
Very much. Appreciate the opportunity to share here. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the history of the church that I'm modeling. And so I'm going to go ahead and throw a picture up here. Can you see that okay?
Yes, sir.
So this is the oldest postcard I could find of St. Mary's in Ocean City, Maryland. According to the research that I did, I believe the parish was settled by largely Irish immigrants, and this building was constructed in 1878. You see there's no bell tower on the corner. So let's see if I can advance to the next picture here. Maybe not. We'll see if I have to. Okay, can you see that now?
Yes.
Church. So now we see that they've added a bell tower on the corner, and this is around 1908. And you notice the Celtic crosses, which reflects the Irish heritage. So this is the era that I modeled with my kit. So as we advance here, this is a picture of the same building in the 60s. You can tell from the cars, there's a 1964 Ford there in the lower right-hand corner. By now, however, the only part of the building that's original is the bell tower, because as the parish has grown, they've expanded the walls outward, and they've adjusted the roof line accordingly. So you can see there used to be sort of an inset there directly behind the bell tower, and now there's just a flat wall going the length of the building. So as we advance again, here's another shot, and this is a recent picture. So the church had a remodeling campaign within the last couple of years where they tore down the old rectory and they constructed a parish hall and a bride room and some other stuff they needed. So today the parish is a thriving parish. This looks like a first communion. And here's a wedding. So that's the history of the parish. So my kit, I have a few 3D printed items. And the first thing I want to show you is this. This is HO scale, by the way. And this is the first HO scale kit that I've constructed in 25 years. So it's a little bit of a challenge. But I 3D printed these. This is part of the bell tower, and there are 4 of these in the kit. And you can see they have a 45-degree miter on the corners, so you can easily join them. So after you glue them together, you're going to get this. And I've already put a few coats of paint on this, and it needs another coat, by the way. But it's good to use a magnetic gluing jig because it keeps everything perfectly square. So the Celtic crosses and one other item are also 3D printed. The walls are laser cut wood, and I personally recommend that you use some primer on that wood, because if you use any sort of a water-based paint, I use acrylic paints almost exclusively, and they will craze the finish of wood. It will cause the grains to stand up, and then you're faced with a sanding project you don't really want. So if you just use a cheap primer on there first, it still might craze a little bit, but it'll dry better. So starting next week, I'll talk to you about the construction techniques, and I can't really think of anything else to share with you tonight. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to entertain those.
Well, I've got one, Alan. You talk about the magnetic jigs that you use.
Yes.
Is that the magnetic table that with the magnets? Is that what you're talking about?
Actually, you can get it from Micromark. It's a square metal plate with sides. It's about 12 square inches, and it's got some really strong magnets included. And I tell you, every project I do, I'm using that thing, whether it's rolling stock or a building.
Gotcha. Well, I'm looking forward to this because I think it's a beautiful model, and it's going to be really, really something when you finish it. So thank you so very much. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Well, now we have our MyBuild segment that we run once a month. And tonight is our show for November. Chris Course is the host for this part of the show. But before I turn it over to Chris, let me play the video for our sponsor, which is Dan and Amy Darty's company, Model Railroad Resource, LLC. And thank them so much for all of their help with this segment. So, Phil?
Welcome to the world of scale, O&S railroading. We are your resource for all O&S scale modeling. Both our magazines are advertiser supported and free to read online, download as a PDF, or even print. All advertisers are hot linked to their website, so if you see something you like, just click. Please check out our websites for the current issues. All back issues available free for the O-Scale resource and the S-Scale resource magazines. And, if you are a manufacturer, distributor, or retail establishment, please contact us through our website for advertising opportunities.
We really do appreciate Dan and Amy being the sponsors for this segment. And I'll now turn it over to Chris Corse. Chris, welcome.
Well, thanks, Jim. Tonight we have 6 modelers, so we will go ahead and get started on that.
You sound like you got a bad cold.
No, I've had something that's been coming and going for a while. I'm getting over it now, but it's just that after part.
Ah, okay.
Anyway, tonight's MyBuild. Of course, November 23rd is today, and it is featuring you. And I'm your host. And up first, we have Martin Breckbiel. You up, Martin?
No, I'm not. I'm down.
All right. Looks like you've got 7 slides tonight.
Okay, I don't know where we're starting. Go with it.
All right.
Right. That's the starting point. I think I don't remember which is okay. That's just 2 views of the same cars, I think.
Yep.
And that's the brass one, isn't it?
That's it
So-
looks like brass.
Yeah. So this is. I have these 3 hoppers. I'm not entirely sure. One's brass, 2 aren't. And I got this box of these for about $20 and thought they have potential for a lot of play value and fun. It's just going to take time with a torch and a bunch of details, because what you see is what I started with. They're pretty much empty of everything except the basic shell. And even then there's things missing like ribs and stuff. And you can see that one there is about ready to fall off. So a lot of fun with a torch. I use a little mini torch. I've gotten tired of waiting for soldering irons to heat up. So let's go to the next one. So I guess that's the car that I built out of that one. So all the everything you see has been added onto it. So everything, it was basically an empty shell with a lot of pieces missing. Well, everything missing, and now it's a completed 2-bay hopper with brake gear, ladders, stirrup steps, all kinds of grab irons and stuff, and a coat of paint. It's amazing what a coat of paint does, even if it is just black. And a load. And I think that one's actually gravel from a, whoops. Yeah, gravel from a, from up in Pennsylvania. I can't remember where it was. Up in Dry Run. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Yeah, that's another lovely one. Bit of a mess. You see, it's got wood parts stuck into it. It's got a lovely bit of weathering on it. I can't replicate that. That's not going to be saved. So this one actually I had to strip all the way down to the metal. This is a Railcraft kit car from the 50s, 60s. These are tin-plated steel. They're not brass. So it makes it even more fun to solder them up. The bolsters on that were actually Walthers, old Walthers white metal ones that are somehow attached to the tin-plated steel with a piece of wood and some wood screws and all kinds of other stuff. So basically this got stripped all the way back down to the bare metal and brought all the way back up. And there's pieces missing and parts of the brake stuff had to come off, and it all got reattached, and all those grab irons got taken off and replaced with ladders. So let's go to the next one. I don't know what I turned this one into. I turned it into a Penn-Dixie Cement Corporation car. There you are. And that's got a real coal load in it. So it's basically the same story as the previous one. A lot of soldering, a lot of bits and pieces, lots of details. Add everything in, coat of paint, a real coal load over some foam, and some decals from K4, and you have a nice little 2-bay hopper. Let's go to the next one while we're at it. Yep, that's the other railcraft car, tin-plated steel again. This one actually still had the bolsters in it to some extent, but pretty much not much else. I mean, the bargain here of this entire purchase might have been the KD couplers. They might have been worth the $20, but the rest of this was just good fun and good play value. So it's a naked shell. You can do whatever you want with it. And what I wanted to do was rebuild it back out to being a decent 2-bay hopper. You can see over the end of that one, you can see the holes where they pre-punched them for the brake casing for the Ajax brake system. So, but this took a lot of grinding, a lot of, let's see, time soaking, take it down to the bare metal, and a lot of grinding with a Dremel and all kinds of milling tools to get all that really lumpy solder off of them. So takes a little bit of time, but let's go to the next one. Yeah, so that one became a Western Maryland car just for fun. Thinking this is a car I don't really need, but I'll paint it with in letter for something that somebody in my geographic area might find attractive. I thought it came out fairly decent for a railcraft car. Yeah, so it's time with a torch, lots of little pieces, solder it all back together, soak it in some lacquer thinner, give it a coat of paint out in the driveway. The neighbors look at you very quizzically, and they want to know, what the heck are you doing? And another real coal load just for fun, because somebody gave me 5 pounds of real coal ground up for coal loads once upon a time, and I still have some left over. And there's the third of that trio.
Yep.
I don't know what the next slide is.
Yeah, that's actually it. That's your last slide.
Oh, very good.
Yep.
That's much better. There is a gondola that came with this trio, which we'll get to maybe next month, which is another fun exercise. And I'm done then.
Wow. It's pretty incredible seeing the beginning and the end. Huge transformation there.
Yeah, I thought it'd be. I haven't really shown people in the past starting with a pile of twigs, building something up. So I thought this time I'd give you a before and after display of what's going on.
Yeah.
Martin, somebody that wants to do something like that, those are O scale, right?
Oh yeah.
Where would you get all the parts, the bits and pieces that you need to complete that? Is there one source for those, or where do you get them?
Oh boy, is there one source? Not really. Not in brass. Actually, the brass ladders are probably old All Nation ladders, but you can get those from All Nation. All that brake apparatus and stuff. That's all precision scale.
Okay.
And, the stirrup steps, I made those from brass strip. That's I can't even remember who makes that anymore, but that's getting harder to find though. That brass strip, small brass.
Yep.
But it's out there. It can be found. So, are there any other questions? Jeff wanted to know about my torch. It's a standard little baby pencil torch you get at Home Depot or thereabouts. I think mine actually came from Amazon. It's about somewhere between $12.99 and $19.99. It's El Cheapo brand. You just use the regular butane for a regular torch in it. Nothing special.
Cool. Alrighty, well, thanks, Martin. I always look forward to whatever you have to present, because it's always something really very interesting.
Well, we'll see you next month then.
Alrighty, and happy Thanksgiving there, Martin.
Yes, you too.
All right. Oh, sorry, we had one more. Forgot about this one.
Okay, there is one more. I thought
Yep.
you said 7.
Yep, I mismarked my slide.
Okay, so I think last month I showed the beginning of this. This is just this store building I've been working on that I started with a Frenchman Creek storefront. So I've started to lay out what's going to go on the inside. That a lot of castings, a lot of kits, little pieces from Banta and other places, and Berkshire Valley. And that big unit on the wall I made that one because nobody makes something quite like that. And the countertop is some, that's cherry. That's a little bit of cherry. I got that from a hobby shop that was closing out around here. And they had, Midwest makes it. They make, everybody thinks of basswood, but Midwest actually made walnut and cherry stock. So I grabbed some when they closed out the store thinking, I'll find a use for it someday. It doesn't go bad. It just sits in a rack. So yeah, this is all just laid out. That I don't think anything was actually glued in place yet. I hope not, because that clock does not belong on the countertop. But it's coming along. And next month, I'll give you an update on this as well.
All right. Cool. Any questions for Martin over the store here? All right. Well, once again, thanks, Martin, and happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Once again. Yep.
All right. Now we'll move on to Bob Davidson. You up, Bob?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. You ready? Looks like you've got 3 slides on here.
All right. We'll start with the first one. I was looking, if you remember from last spring when I did a presentation, I'm modeling the part of the Gowanus Canal and an industrial area in Brooklyn. The upper left, you can see that this is a bridge that went over the canal. I'm not going to actually do it up on the trestles like that. But this is kind of my, from my silk purse out of a sow's ear thing. So I had in an old box, I had one of these Atlas Warren Truss bridges, which kind of looks like what that bridge looked like. You see, I spent all of $3.79 for it. But it was too long. It's about a 70-foot bridge, and I needed to get it down to 48 feet. So if we go to the next slide, you can see what I did. There's on the upper left is the original kit piece. I actually cut out of the middle, working very carefully with a Dremel, and went around some of the plates and was able to remove the center section and put everything back together. The bottom view there on the right, the lower right, I added in a superstructure because there was none with the kit. So I had some evergreen large I-beams around and put together a structure there. And here you can see this is the completed unit. I was able to reuse the track that came with the bridge, just shorten that up. We go to the next slide. I'll be kind of fast. Yeah. So here you can see it together. I added in some guardrails. And then on the side of the bridge, I'm going to have, it's in an industrial area, so I'll have a large, it scales out to about an 8-inch pipe, 9-inch pipe running across that'll then duct down into the underground and service one of the industries along the canal. I think that's it. Just a quick little reuse of an old cheap kit.
Nice, yeah.
Did some painting and weathering, obviously you can see on it. Did some rusting, and it'll fit in great with the rest of the layout.
Yep. Got a good repurposing of what you've got. So
yeah, like I say, it's just for under $4. It was a good solution to what I needed.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Bob? All right. Well, thank you very much, Bob, and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to all.
All right. Next up, we have Tony Dixon. You up, Tony? Thought I heard him earlier.
I know he was
having
here.
trouble.
He was having trouble getting in, I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
He got back in, but he lost audio.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. All right. So why don't we go on and we'll throw him back into the mix at the end if he can get himself get his situation figured out. All right. Jeff Jordan up next.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, how you doing, Jeff?
Good.
Good. All right. Looks like you've got 3 slides tonight.
Yep. Okay. This is picking up on the theme of silk purse out of a sow's ear. That started life as a Bachmann combine somebody gave me that was broken. The end railings were gone. It was missing some other parts, and said, well, let's see if you can make something out of it. And so I took that as a challenge and took the Bachmann combine and decided it would be a work caboose. Though the photo doesn't show it too well, it started with that kind of purplish maroon color that Bachmann cast these in with gold trim. And so I sanded the sides rather vigorously to give them a really weathered effect. And a lot of, if you see it in person, it looks like really weathered wood. The end railings were replaced by really nice Wiseman castings he makes for the Bachmann cars. You just strip off the end sill and everything from Bachmann and put his end sills on. They look quite good. Blocked out a couple of windows to give it the tattered work car effect. And then I discovered Banta's made a cupola for this specific car. And so added that on. And the one change I made from Banta, he did give you a roof walk, but he wanted the roof walk to run down the side. I shifted it so the roof walk runs down the middle rather than the side. But so now we've got a work caboose for my work train out of a car I got for free.
Cool. All right, we'll move on next to the rotary snowplow.
The rotary snowplow.
I love the free. I love the free part of that, Jeff.
Yeah, when you can get that, grab it. The rotary snowplow. This, I wish I had a before picture for this. This started as the Athearn rotary snowplow, the blue box, but there's very little of the original Athearn rotary left other than the rotor. And even there, if you look, you can see I stripped off the Athearn grab irons, cut them off, replaced them with metal grab irons. And also the flanger is left from the Athearn model, but pretty much nothing else. Scratch built the sides out of styrene sheet. The windows and doors are Grant line castings. This guy, incidentally, is HO scale, not ON30. And then various other details are nut bolt washer castings, bits of wire. The hatches on the side are styrene sheet, leftover bits of ladder. And then you've got the tender. It's just off of an old Mantua locomotive that I had sitting around, and Scratch built the cover over the coal. And it is a reasonable approximation of the DNRGW's rotary 00, though it, of course, was narrow gauge, and this one is standard gauge. Though it's inspired me now, I'm on the verge of another project to replicate this in ON30. And so right now I'm hunting for parts that'll work for an ON30 version, including finding somebody's, nobody makes an ON30 rotor. So finding a rotor that'll be close enough and otherwise scare up the parts. But, it really conceals its heritage as starting as an Athearn blue box model. I think we got one more slide with some more pictures of it. Yeah, there you go. Now you can see the whole piece there, including the tender, which is basically just a tender I had lying around and it had some steps on it, so that was fine. And has some detail on the front, as you can see. One thing you can't really quite tell in this picture is, as I was working on it, I realized with all those windows, it looked see-through. And of course, in the real thing, there was a great big boiler in there. And so I built a black view block that just goes down the center. It's not a cylinder, it's just a sheet of plastic painted black. So you can see the shadow of a boiler in there. And if you look in from the end, I don't have a picture of that. I made just a very simple backhead. So you can, it looks like there's something inside the rotary snowplow to make it go. And then, oh yeah, the headlight is obviously a casting, but hand built or hand bet some of the railings, like the grabs for the doors and the drop style grabs on the rotor, or just some freight car style drop grabs that I had that fit in place, and replacing the grabs, cutting off the little plastic ledges and replacing them with grabs always adds so much to the model, and there's really not that much to it. Steady hand with a fine drill, and it just makes it look like there's much more detail there. So if I get it together and start working on the ON31, I'll show that up eventually. But right now I'm still trying to scrape up, see if I can scrape up enough pieces to do it in ON30.
Yeah, I think it actually looks better than the one I was looking at. The real one I saw back in August, thing looked like it had been through hell. And yours actually looks a lot better than it does.
There's one sitting, and this was inspired by the one at Chama, New Mexico. And I had taken photographs of it when I was in Chama, and it also was in pretty rough shape when I saw it. But maintenance of way equipment, when it was in use, was kept in pretty good shape, because at the end of the season, it would go back into the shop and they would clean it all up. And of course, I don't have any snow on my layout, so this would usually spend its time parked on a siding somewhere in near the shops.
Yeah, great job on that.
Thank you.
Any questions for Jeff?
That is super creative, Jeff. No question about it. Starting with what you started with and building that's creativity.
All righty.
Jeff,
okay.
Larry McDonald here. When you do your ON31, what are you going to use for the rotary blades?
Well, I'm shopping around to see what's available out there. There are some O scale ones that look way too big, and I'm looking at some various HO scale ones that I may try and enlarge a little bit. For example, you can see this one has got very little in the way of shrouding around the blade. And so I'm thinking with some sheet plastic material, I can make it look bigger by just putting more shrouding around it.
Right, yeah. I think they have some movable vanes or wings on those at the
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So and also I did start with I took and parked next to this an ON30 boxcar, and the ON30 boxcar is not that much more massive than this. So I'm thinking it may be a little bit of a diminutive rotary snowplow when I'm done, but it'll look of a right proportion compared to the body, which if you look at the photographs, the rotor sometimes is actually inset a little bit rather than outside of the body of the car. And so if I can find, I've got one on the way, if you remember the ancient Roundhouse Kit Basher series, they did one for rotary snowplow, and it has a rotor in there that looks decent, and I'm waiting for that to show up. I may not use anything else in that box other than the rotary snowplow, but that's the hard part. Building the car body, some doors, windows, and styrene sheet, and you're most of the way there.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks.
All righty, well, thank you very much, Jeff, and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
All right, next we'll move on to the award-winning Jim Murphy. You up, Jim?
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. Hope coming in loud and clear, and that's an interesting. Let me preface this no build along done for new new tracks modeling goes unpunished. That if you once you have done all that documentation, it's just really easy to just put the model and all those photographs and write-ups on the table, and away you go.
All righty, looks like you've got 6 slides tonight.
All righty, well, we're gonna start with that one. As some of you have were aware that way back when we were able to do a Berkshire Valley Models business executive car, and we took the basically a label kit and modernized or a new reissue of the HO scale Berkshire Valley kit, and we proceeded to do a detailed build along, starting with all the pieces that were included with the kit, the pre-cut sides, and basically a bare bones kit, the old style label where you had to shape the roof yourself and add your own details. No underbody, your trucks included. It was back in the old days when you did, trucks and couplers were by the owner. Well, also interior detailing. And in order to show off interior detailing, well, you're going to have to illuminate it. So to bring it onto the layout in an illuminated manner, you added, and I can't remember which photos I've included, but you had to add electrical pickups, which were added to basically 50-year-old Central Valley trucks. So don't be discouraged. Yes, you can add modern electrical pickups to your trucks, transmit that power through a wooden kit model, making use of various wire parts that you've added underneath there, which are truss rods, and then take that power up to LEDs that you've made and to LEDs right up into the marker lights. Also along the way on the lower left there, we can see some 21st century 3D printed furniture, which was not available years ago, and some 50-year-old cardboard partitions. So we have new and old technology in there, and we have some craft paper flowers even added onto the dining room table at my wife's suggestion. If you're going to have an executive, you better have flowers on the table.
All righty. All right. Next up, looks like your Nighthawk scene.
Yes, indeed. This is another the Nighthawks Diner restaurant build. This is from Wit and Wisdom Models, which provided an excellent fiberboard laser cut kit that consisted of the restaurant itself, the side buildings, which is the barber shop that appeared in another of Edward Hopper's paintings. The first, of course, is the Nighthawks. That was from 1942. The Sunday Morning, which is that barbershop building behind, was from 1926 painting. And taking those basic kits plus the 3D printed figures of the counter boy and the patrons late night with their classic expression of distance yet being physically close, all of that to put it together. And then taking it a step beyond, and that's the detailing of the interiors of the other buildings besides the cafe, and adding different types of illumination. On the left-hand side, you have conventional LEDs, which are the yellowish cast that gives a tungsten effect in the rooms. In the Nighthawks itself, you use brighter LEDs because 1942 was the first electroluminescent bulbs were put in New York City, first fluorescents. And in the center of the alleyway there, the Nighthawk sign was made from a Miller Engineering electroluminescent kit, where it's flat panel lighting that's you apply your own decals on the surface of it, and you custom do basically a fluorescent sign that that's a flat panel sign that you can put up there. Also, little touches that David added to the Wit and Wisdom kit was the use of a mirror on the back wall there, so it appears as though the sidewalk between the two buildings actually goes off into the distance and turns the corner, adding that extra depth. So bake the basic kit, paint it up, and then add illumination, which really brings everything to life.
All right.
Here's a little bit more of the detail. Is the traditional Nighthawks in the lower right, and that's where Edward Hopper, who was 6'5" tall, would have stood to get the perspective. And we give credit to John Armstrong, who actually back calculated the perspective angle on that, knowing Hopper's height, in order to produce his model, which appeared in Model Railroader in 1989, I believe, an O-scale Nighthawks diner, which was the inspiration for the overall model, and the 1926 painting in the background that was turned into the barber shop, hardware store, and the tenements on the second floor. And the next one is a larger view. Because the restaurant did not show an entrance, and this was part of Hopper's philosophy, he didn't have a way in or out. So in order to expand the building and make it look reasonable, I added an extra entrance in the front, which you see in this front. And instead of a plain wall in the back there, I added a hardware store. This was done with a pre-printed transparent slide from City Classics that sort of fit in there. And I added things like skylights and extra windows and openings and a fire escape at the top, just to add all those extra details. On the right-hand side is a factory building that was added on to provide a little more interest to it. And those lights are different colors, different hues, and they come on and off at different times. Those are lit with NeoPixels, and they're powered by an Arduino, and that allows you to program the on-off time of an individual room. There are 13 NeoPixels in there for the different rooms and lighting. You program the color, the intensity, the time on and off. So it appears as though there's actually motion and activity going on inside that warehouse. What's not shown, and because of copyright reasons, there is no music playing in that, but it does have an MP3 player that features the top hits of 1942. So it sets the era of the painting. And I want to take everybody that had an opportunity to see the model in person. I put toggle switches on the back and an invitation up front to play with the lights, so you could turn the lights on and off in the building, especially in the factory building. You could get the lights to come on and off, as well as play the soundtrack while you were looking at the model.
Wow. That explains why you're an award winner.
Oh, it was a lot of fun working on that. And as I said, we spent a lot of times on the build along, but it was just such a lot of fun to be able to take all that. And for those that didn't have a chance to see the build along, to take that to a regional convention and share it with the folks there.
Jim, I got to ask you this. I may be the only one here that doesn't know, but I'm going to ask anyway. What's a neopixel?
It is, okay, you're familiar with LEDs, right, Jim?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, picture an LED that's actually 3 colors. An LED is usually white.
Right.
Now picture that same LED with 3 tiny little LEDs all in the same lens. A red, a blue, and a green. And for those of you that are old enough to remember the first color televisions were red, blue, and green. And by showing different amounts of light from each of the red, blue, and green tubes, or whatever guns they used, you were able to get 1,000,000 different colors to show through. Now picture that same color TV tube shrunk down to the size of a tiny little LED. And by using the miracle of Arduino and some really simple trinket programming, you put a string of them together like a string of beads. And you say, okay, pixel number 1. I want you to be half green and half blue. And I want you to be 100% brightness. And I want you to stay on for 5 seconds. Now, pixel number 2 is the next one down the daisy chain. But I want you to be red and blue. So you're going to be purple. And I want you at half intensity. And I want you to stay on for 30 seconds. And you keep going down from pixel to pixel to pixel to pixel in this daisy chain. And you program it with a little simple array in your Arduino. Plug it in, and then it's trial and error. You change the program. So you can essentially build a tiny little color TV into each one of these little neopixels. And how long it stays on and how bright is relatively easy to program. And you can do a whole town. I think you can have up to 50 of these pixels on one little Arduino trinket the size of a postage stamp.
Unbelievable. Thank you. Never heard of it before.
It's brand new. A few model railroad clubs have used it. Michigan and one down in Florida. I can't think of the name of the club that redid their layout, and they put a couple of hundred of these pixels in a downtown scene and just have amazing effects as you're going through town. You can go from day to night to twilight to buildings coming on and off and just telling a story as you go around. And if you put a soundtrack behind it, it gets really interesting.
Yeah. I heard you needed a shopping cart to take all the awards out of the convention.
Oh, it was a lot of fun, and say it's I like to encourage anybody, even if it was not that many years ago. I went to my first NMRA convention, and one of my buddies from the train club says, "Murph, why don't you put something in the contest? Well, I'm not a contest modeler. I mean, I don't know what to do. And he says, you fill out a little application form. It's just write a few notes about the model, put it on the table and see what happens. Well, okay, I sketched it out and it was a pretty darn low score. That's all I can tell you. And the next one, I put another model on and I wrote it up a little better and I get a teeny bit higher score. Fast forward 20 years and I've got enough of those to put together an achievement program certificate.
Well deserved.
All righty.
A lot of fun.
We're not at the end yet. We still have more. But wait, there's more.
Oh, wait a minute. There's more. Now, this is a repeat. Now, this particular model of my station, which we talked about a couple of years ago on the show, I put on display in Charlotte. And because it had already taken a top place award in the Northeast region, where the state prototype station was years ago, I entered and won first place for structures. So you don't want to, you don't re-enter the same model, but this was put on the floor just for fun. And they put a number next to it so you can claim it to get it back out of the contest room. And we have a model. I guess most divisions or regions have a favorite model contest. And this happened to have a number next to it, and it was just sitting there. And again, this is lit up by LEDs. No sand track in this one yet, but just it's a model of my hometown station. So I put it up there and put it on display only, no judging involved. But it garnered enough votes for favorite model, and strictly popular vote. No judging involved, just whoever goes in there, one modeler, one vote. And so it won favorite model. So I got a plaque for that as well.
Cool.
Like I say, shipping card.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like this is the last slide. It's looks like more of the previous.
More of the station there, and that's again, and that did well because it's hometown, and I found the secret of doing winning a popular vote is do something with lots of people in it. First of all, model something you really, really like, because if you enjoyed modeling it, people are going to enjoy seeing it. So if you have fun with it, other folks will have fun with the model as well.
Cool. All right, that's some good advice there. Any questions for Jim?
Jim, what did you use for the floor in the station there?
Oh, that is glossy photo paper, and it's just printed with HO scale 2 foot by 4 foot marble panels. I was fortunate enough to actually have the architectural plans for that original station from 1883. From a similar station. It was the one up the road. But this architect, H.H. Richardson, was famous. He owned a granite quarry, which you see in the lower picture, a brownstone quarry, which you see in the lower picture. He owned a lumber yard, which are the building supports. He also had a marble quarry. He was kind of the first vertically integrated contractor in the world. And he was famous for his 2 foot by 4 foot marble tiles. And that's what you see in there. And it's just printed on glossy photo paper. So there's a nice wax finish on the floor, which you don't normally put in models as shiny finishes. But this is freshly waxed marble.
Nice. Cool. Any more questions for Jim? All righty. Well, thank you very much for sharing, Jim, and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to all.
All right. Next up, we'll have Rich Wolfhanger. You around, Rich?
Yes, I am, sir.
There you go. All right. Looks like you've got 5 slides.
Well, there were 10, and there's a reason for 10, but that's okay. This is my rendition of the Saturday Workshop Ice House project. First and foremost, I would like to thank Jim Kello for allowing us to have this workshop on our included weekly segments of New Tracks Modeling. And I would like to give credit to Heath Trollope from Canada, who provided several of us modelers with these ice machines. Now, this is my painted ice machine. In the background, you can see the original 3D print. I covered mine with Vallejo surface primer to give it some tooth before I added the extra paint. And the paints I used were Vallejo and some Floquil. Now, it took me 3 days to paint this, but I'll give a tip to people who have to paint theirs upcoming. I used a very small brush. I used a 10/0 brush, and I started on the inside and painted from the inside out, because if you start on the outside in, you're going to touch spots where you don't want other colors, and you have to repaint over them. And I had to do that several times. Now, that copper paint on there is Floquil copper, and it provided the best, I think, copper color for that piping. And the interior, I don't know if you can see that good enough. There's silver, and that's old silver. And then on that flywheel down below, that's gunmetal. And on that turnstile wheel to the back, that's gunmetal as well. And then the black on that one case in the front at the upper left photo, that's weathered black by Floquil. I think it turned out pretty good. I'm not sure exactly if I think those ice chunks at the bottom come out of that unit where you can see brown on the bottom where they're sitting on top, but I'm not sure exactly how that works. I looked on Wikipedia, but I really couldn't figure that one out. Now, the rest of the pictures that show my completed diorama, I just want to make sure that Paul Egri gets a go, because he provided cardstock modeling pictures that are in zip folder on the New Tracks Modeling website. And if anyone who wants to build that isn't building the ice house diorama can go there and get that. And other people on here have seen the ice house being constructed during our workshop program. There are other folks that showed up for specific segments. I'd like to give a thank you to. Greg Cassidy was on several. Will Zadnick uploaded photos and project drawings to our website. Father Ron is building a model as well, and he told me tonight that he's not finished with his yet. And I believe Larry McDonald was going to do one later on. No, I don't know if anyone else is. But when Chris Blackmar, who started this program, asked me to join to be included in some segments, I wanted to make sure I was available to him. He's like a mentor to me. Actually, he's like a brother to me. But I also would like to mention that he is still ill. Even though he's traveling this week with his family for Thanksgiving, he wanted to thank everyone who came on the show and were allowed to model with us as well. And if there is a chance for a future program, maybe we can do that later on down the line. That's up to you, Jim. So if you want to put up some more pictures, I'll show my model. No? Can you zoom in on that top one on the left?
I cannot.
Okay.
Not in this mode, so.
Okay, that shows the overall.
I can, hang on. How's that? Did that work?
Sure. That
Okay.
shows the overall, looking straight down on my model, that brick driveway. Now, I didn't construct my model like I showed in the original drawings that are uploaded to the website. And that, for that reason, is when I model, I always change things in between, and that's just me. But I did the main building on the upper right here, the same as the drawing, and then I added a dock there. I also added a front dock with a porch that went around two sides that's not on the drawing. And that, I'm not sure what you want to call that, tramway over the breezeway there that hooks the two buildings together. I added that with two railings on it. And instead of building that upper higher building that attached to the main structure, I added the stone building as an ice storage unit. So the ice will travel along that tramway into the window, and then it goes. I used an old coal chute. You'll see that, I think, in the next picture.
All right, let's see here.
I put a coal chute in there on it. So the ice goes down that ramp to the left, and then it goes down a lower ramp to be stored on the floor in a cold air unit on the floor. I didn't know how to really build that, but I guess it worked for me.
All right.
And I added that, well, that crane on the porch, I scratch built that too. That's pinned at the top and the bottom, so that moves around. It's not glued down. And some of my doors aren't glued in either. I can pull those out. I did want to mention that tar paper on the roof on that porch on the main building in the front. I chose something different this time. I used brown coffee filters that I got from Dollar General and covered them with Floquel Boxcar Red. And then I was going to go over that with some Boxcar Red colored brick pigments, but I decided against it. I kind of like the way that looks, and in person it looks a lot better than it shows here. It looks like a dark brown here. You can go to the next one. And that shows the other side of that porch. I wanted to make an ice truck. Now that ice truck was a German-made model. It was a Mercedes. I clipped off the hood emblem and sanded it flat to make it look like a radiator cap. Oh, and the place is closed. See that gate in the front? That's why I didn't show any workers, because there's only one guy in the main building sitting at his desk. I don't know if you can see him. It was probably in that first picture. Oh, you'd have to zoom in on him. He's sitting at his desk.
Yeah, he's sitting right up in the corner there.
That building that shows the ice house on the upper left, or the ice machine in the upper, no, that other picture. That ice machine over in the corner is a refrigerator. So when they get too much ice and it's stocked up, they can stick it in the fridge so it won't melt.
All right.
There are some more details I can add to this, but I wanted to make sure that I got this on here before the end of the year. And I want to thank everybody who was involved with this program. And
You did a beautiful job, Rich. You really did. You ought to be proud of it.
Thank you, Jim. I also like to thank Chris Kors for putting my pictures on here and putting up with me. And I want to make sure that everyone knows that everyone has a nice Thanksgiving as well.
Alrighty. Are there any questions for Rich?
Yeah, Rich, what did you make the ice out of?
Oh, that's a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch clear square stock that was in the Fine Scale Miniatures Kit Ice House 50 by George Celios. That was in there. It was a piece about 1.5 inches long, and I took my razor saw and actually made a jig to cut that, because if you try to hold that in your hand and cut that with a razor saw, it's not going to saw directly across. So I took 2 pieces of 1/4 inch wood, basswood, and glued that to another board, and then I put the ice in between the 2 boards and then cut it with my razor saw. Well, I emailed a picture of that to Chris, and he sent me back a picture of, I'm surprised you don't have any of these. And I said, what are those? And he said it was a key set. He says you can buy them at any hardware store for like 20 bucks. And what they are 1/4 inch square steel rods. They're about 1 inch, 1.5 inches long. And he says you could have glued these to your board and then cut your ice. And I said, that's great until you get to the last piece, and how you gonna cut that, because it's not gonna hold in there. So I cut across my piece and the wood, and it cut it perfectly. So I didn't have any waste.
Oh, they came out great.
He said he was gonna go to Amazon and buy some 1/4 by 1/4 clear chunks, and they were 4 feet long, and you get 13 pieces for like $11. And that's quite a lot, though. I wouldn't know what to do with most of those. But when I searched that on Wikipedia, I found out that ice blocks, see, if I cut those at 1/8 inch thick, so 1/8 inch 1/4 by 1/4 is about a 300-pound block. And then on Wikipedia, they mentioned that ice wasn't always just clear, it was also milky white. So I had some extra pieces of square hydrocal that I had used for something else about that size, and I cut those up, and then I covered those with regular craft paint. It was a satin color, so it had a shiny effect to it, and they turned out pretty nice, but I didn't put any of those in here.
Yeah, Rich?
Yes.
It's Pat here. I just wondered if you could take some of that clear plastic, and if you sanded it with a 4-aught sandpaper, real fine sandpaper, you get that milky white system on there, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we were talking about that last week, Chris and I.
I think that earlier suggestion of spraying it with dull coat might work also. So yeah, the ice is normally generally cloudy.
Yep.
Because if there's anything in the water, we got a reverse osmosis system and connected to the ice maker. And the thing that was amazing was the ice was actually clear. And that's because it's taking all the metals out and stuff, the reverse osmosis. But if you take the water we have without the reverse osmosis and just make ice out of it, it's cloudy. So it's dependent upon the water.
In that upper picture that you have shown right now is a chunk that's sitting next to that crane. And I don't know if you can zoom in on that one, but I put the hazy top up on top so it's viewable, but on the sides it's clear, and I didn't sand the sides. We talked about sanding the sides, but I didn't do it. But in HO scale, this model's so small that you can't tell. I can't tell looking at that.
Yeah, it looks great for what you're looking for.
And another thing I'd like to mention is I have a hard time placing details. I'm not sure what to put where, but like Al Judy, I don't glue anything down either. None of these details are glued down. And the reason why I don't glue them down is if I have to build another model and show it somewhere, then I'll take these details off and put them on another model. No one's going to know the difference. Plus, it takes forever to paint details in it. It takes longer than it is to build a structure. And that
Great
railing on that tram, I broke that off 5 times. So I glued it there and didn't touch it again.
I feel your pain on that.
It's so fragile. Those are 1x1 by 2s and 1 by 3s. I think the biggest board on there is the top of the railing is a 2x4.
Yeah, I think you were talking about the truck earlier. Whose truck is that?
It was a German-made model. Just a minute, I'll get. We're gone past our 5 minutes. I don't want to upset Jim.
That's all right.
It's all metal construction, isn't it?
It's ROSKOPF. And it's made in Berlin. But it's 187 scale, and it was a Mercedes truck, and there's only 2 front doors on it.
Oh.
And the 2 back doors. I actually took Woodland Scenic's lettering and put ICE on the back. And then I was going to say, if anyone mentioned that, I was going to say, well, I should have said nice, but the end fell off. The paint on that truck, when I bought that truck, the whole top was painted white and the whole bottom was painted black. And the paint you see on there looks a lot brighter than it normally is in real life, because it looks like a darker gray black. The paint I used was Vallejo Heather Blue, and that's a really nice color. But I did not go over that with any. I was going to go over it with a black wash, but I didn't do that yet. But actually, it turned out pretty nice.
Yeah.
And then I rusted up some of the top and the fenders with just using a little bit of Vallejo light brown, or it was a Reaper light brown mixed with a little bit of windshield washer fluid.
Beautiful job.
Oh, I appreciate that, guys. Wait till you see my next build. I'm gonna scratch build Foss scale models Atlas Gorge.
Wow. All right. Are there any questions for Rich? All righty. Well, thank you very much for sharing, Rich, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, sir. You too, and to everyone else.
All righty. And now I think Tony Dixon is back, so we're going to try to backtrack and go back to him. Oh, there we go. You with us, Tony?
I'm here.
All right, there we go. All right, looks like we've got 4 slides for you, and sounds like we're missing some, but we'll I guess we'll play catch up on that for next month. I apologize for, well, I didn't get the pictures, but anyway, we'll make it right. All right.
No stress. These are interior shots of the scale house and office that went on Chris Steve's 2nd place National Farm Toy Show display for this year. Show was held the first weekend in November. A lot of 3D printed parts in there. The building started out as a HO scale Rick's Kit Basher Series 2-stall engine house with the walls shortened. It still uses the Rick's windows and then the 3D printed doors. Interior scratch built and lined with evergreen styrene for some of the paneling and whatnot. Just about every detail you see in there is 3D printed. Couches, printers, radios, seat testers, you name it.
So according to Murph, the key to getting first place is you got to have more people in the model.
There was actually quite a few figures in and on the display. It was a tough competition this year. The winner was actually a robot dairy operation. That was a beautiful model, and it was tough competition. They had something like 13 people in the adult small scale competition, which is basically 32nd, 64th, 87th, so on, anything smaller than 32nd scale. But the bulk of those being 1/64th S scale.
Alrighty.
That's the wood house and addition that's went on the display as part of the feed mill side. The main wood house is a kit, styrene. The manufacturer of it eludes me right now. The grain bin is by Standy Farm Toys, and then it's detailed up with some evergreen channel for the stiffeners on the outside, the bin fans, and safety cage on that's available from Farm Factor 3D. The catwalk and conveyors are available from Circle C Farm Toys. And are all 3D printed.
Very nice. Alrighty.
This is the dump pit area, flat storage buildings over by, which would be on the same side as the mill. I wish the other pictures had actually came through, but that's all right. These again are a couple of Rick's Kit Basher kits. I do not remember what the kit started out as, but I don't think it really matters because, yeah, they were kit bashed into a couple of flat storage buildings. The grain leg is, again, a Farm Factor 3D. The pit, which the bar grade actually comes off of and has full detail underneath. And the ground conveyors, again, are Circle C Farm Toy parts and are all 3D printed. The truck is a custom using die-cast for motion pieces.
Cool. Alrighty, and I think this is our last slide for you.
Yeah, and there was more that went with that. With the blueprint, there should have actually been a 3D printed version of what's in the blueprint. That's a continuous mixed flow grain dryer from Chief Industries owns and sells it, but it's a Caldwell brand dryer. And there's a 3D printed version that I drew up and printed out that's based off of those blueprints. And then the other was just some signage details on the outside of the mill, which there should have been a third picture there again that showed the overall view of the mill.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions for Tony? All right. Thanks for sharing there, Tony, and have a happy Thanksgiving. All right, and then the last slide here, the next MyBuild, I believe it's December 21st. Is that right, Jim?
Yes, sir.
All righty. Okay, so the next MyBuild, December 21st, featuring you. To participate, email me your photos, railrunner130@hotmail.com. And if you have not participated in the past, also include a picture of yourself so we can put that on your title card. So with that, I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and turn it back over to you, Jim.
Chris, thanks so very much. And thank you so much for everybody that participated tonight. You know, between the three manufacturers that we had and Gary and the people that did the presentations on the MyBuild, I'm sure that everybody picked up at least one tip about modeling that hopefully can help you along the way in your building. That's the intent of the show. That's why we do them. And we hope that people really benefit from what you hear and from the models that you see other people have built. That's it for tonight. We appreciate you so much coming. We hope that you'll subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of the YouTube shows, particularly the ones on Thursday nights for our modeling lifestyle. And we hope you'll also subscribe to our website so that you can join us live with Zoom every Wednesday evening. So with that said, oh, and don't forget to consider a donation through our Patreon account so that we can make sure that we can provide the scholarship this year of $1,000, as well as pay the out-of-pocket costs to keep running our show. So with that said, Phil, can we run the caboose? And I might say we're looking forward to whoever builds this and whatever scale they build it. We're not sure if it's the narrow gauge. And that's it for our show this evening. Until next time, happy modeling and hope you have a great Thanksgiving.